Hello, guys. Welcome to this new edition of Mind Podcast. This is Aadit Kapadia, and together with me is a very special guest today. Before I introduce my guest, I have been told I need to do this before I start the podcast. So please like this video, follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube page. So with the housekeeping done, now I can do the podcast and get on with the show. So together with me I have a face and a voice for people who have hear us on SoundCloud that you guys are very familiar with on Mind Makers, columnist, and the host of the India Rising podcast with Mohal and Kishore, or one half of the panel of
Yeah.
India Rising podcast, and follows defense, foreign affairs, politics, and sports very keenly. I have my friend Mohal Joshi with me. So, hi Mohal, welcome to Mind Podcast.
Thanks, Adit. I mean, it was quite a bit of introduction. At least you didn't say associate professor, Harvard University.
We did a whole podcast on associate
I know.
professors at Harvard.
I heard that one with Ruchi. It was a nice one. So.
Yeah, I was like, अगर और मैं करूंगा, they're like they have nothing else to talk about except maybe Rajban. But
uh,
but this is a good plug. Glad you said. If you haven't, go back to the previous podcast and listen to
uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
What associate professors we talked about. So this podcast we will start, like I promised last week, with the Biden inauguration. Talk a little bit about what has happened in America over the last 1 or 2 weeks. Then we'll go to the India-Australia cricket series and discuss a little bit more. A lot of people have written very positively about our cricket coverage and cricket podcast. I even actually ended up writing a piece after I don't know how long on this, but that's how the series motivated us. And then we'll end with a little bit of a political quip. Rahul Gandhi, I heard, is in Tamil Nadu, and I don't know how people from Tamil Nadu feel about it. But we'll talk a little bit about it. So it'll be a good 40 minutes of discussion. So without further ado, Mohal, let's get the whole U.S. Capitol violence out of the way, right? So why don't you tell our listeners about it? I mean, our listeners, our viewers about it, so they know what happened, right? But what has happened post it? There was this big Trump rally, and then there was a crowd that went berserk. They broke stuff. I mean, they were like hooligans, and they did all sorts of nonsense in the U.S. House. The Senate had and the House of Representatives had to vacate, and the Senate came back to certify the results and everything. And of course, now Joe Biden is the president of the United States. But it almost seemed like Donald Trump's message after the whole Capitol thing, the insurrection had happened, was almost the one of he panicked almost. Right? It seemed that the 2 minute, 2.5 minute video he did on Twitter before he was even banned on Twitter was, sensed a little bit of. So is it more than what he bargained for? Because was he just shooting it in the air, and then these guys actually went ahead and did something, and he's like, oh boy, how can I take this back?
I mean, some people have speculated that maybe he was read the riot act by Mitch McConnell and probably Mike Pence
Mm-hmm.
to rein in the protesters who had gone quite, as you said, like berserk and
Mm-hmm.
uh, sort of invaded the capital, which was like a very deeply troubling event, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, but how do you view this? How do you view this in the whole paradigm of US politics, right? Because you had the issue where a lot of Republicans were saying that without the Trump Republicans, or without the, okay, first of all, does Trump represent the base, right? If the alienation of Trump from the Republican Party, because it seems like he has been alienated, right? 10 Democrats even voted, 10 Republicans even voted with the impeachment. So yes, a part of the party with is with him, but by and large everyone seems to have sort of tied this violence to him. So how do you view this?
I think it's a bit troubling for the Republicans. See, they
Mm, mm,
already, as I'd written on Mind Makers, that they have a big suburban and a demographics problem. Now, granted, like demography isn't destiny as how some would claim. As I'd said, like the new swing voter in USC, like the rural areas are firmly with the Republicans.
mm,
The cities are still with the Democrats.
mm,
So I know Trump did turn out a lot more people in this election, especially from the red rural areas. But there
mhm,
is no way he can make up the losses as you
mm,
see in the swing states, and as
mm,
I written about
mm,
by uh, by just like turning out more. There are just not that many more Republicans voters out there in the rural areas. So the key or the linchpin is the suburbs. Now,
mm,
as the suburbs, like there was a just a small shift of uh, college educated
Hmm.
suburban voters towards the Democrat base. Now,
Hmm.
if this accelerates, even like the state you are in, Texas,
Hmm.
could
Hmm.
probably move, let's say, in the 2 or 3 cycles. Now, when Texas goes, it's a big problem. So some of the Republican leadership, I mean, they were beholden to Trump and they were afraid of speaking out for
Hmm.
getting primaried, like a Jeff
Hmm.
Flake or a
Hmm.
I mean, there are like few more examples. Now they feel emboldened that if they let this go anymore, then Trump could virtually destroy the party. And if they get swept out of the suburbs, then there is nothing left. I mean, they would be in massive trouble. I mean, there is still the redistricting stuff that they can do on the local stuff, so they retain some kind of competitiveness in the House.
Hmm.
And the Senate is basically, like it's the lot of the states are pretty much rural, but in the House and the presidential, they could be looking at a barren spell for many election cycles to come.
Hmm.
So I mean, they realize that okay, you need the Trump base, but
Hmm.
also you need to dial back the rhetoric a little bit, where you can sway some of the suburban voters who might be reluctant uh, Biden voters,
Hmm. Hmm.
but not like hard, might not have switched hardcore. Because if you see like the percentage of votes that Biden got versus the House Democrats got,
Hmm. Hmm.
in most of the places, the Republicans' House candidates outperform Biden in most of the areas. So that shows that there is a small chunk of voters which is uh, like maybe might vote presidential because they didn't like Trump at all, his personality,
Hmm.
but still are a core conservative. Now, but if now coming back to the events of Capitol Hill,
Hmm.
if this more of these events continue, then I'm pretty sure that many of the suburbans they would get a massive backlash against the Republicans.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, and then you also have the whole situation that happened before, right? Where they lost the Georgia Senate, both the seats, right? And it was expected that maybe Democrats will win one or Republican will win one. So how do
Mm-hmm.
we view that? Like, how significant? Because Georgia hasn't voted a Democrat senator in a long, long time, right? So
Mm-hmm.
how are we looking at the whole thing?
So the conventional wisdom was that in
But
the
before you complete, a lot of people who are going to comment why I was removing my glasses, there was an issue with the glare. So when I have to, when I have to read something, I'll put them back on. That is why I just don't want that to
you should
impact
have said
my.
it was dramatic effect, right? The news anchors like might make a
Uh,
brilliant point and like remove the glasses,
but
to
I wish I had thought of that. My thing is just to remove. So people commenting, they're like, "Arey, why did you remove the glasses? Because of this reason." So
so
go on. Yeah.
the conventional wisdom was in the midterms there is usually a backlash against the
Mhm.
sitting party in the White House and the other party does win. But I think what Trump has done is he is practically, as I wrote then, like he has glued the both the wings of the progressive and the moderates to get rid of Trump. So Trump was still hanging around. He hasn't like conceded. So in a way, Trump is like the boon and also the evil for the Republican Party. He cannot
Mhm.
win. They cannot win without him. But also he kind of unites, like somebody, as I said, like all the way extreme from the squad or AOC to somebody scientist like Joe Manchin. Like the only binding glue between all of them is get rid of Trump. So that's the kind of challenge that it unites the Democrats, and I think they did get out the vote better. Many of the Republicans were turned off by this, like the fraud claims, which were not proven in any court so up till so far. So that did hurt, and then also Mitch McConnell also blocking the stimulus, the additional stimulus where Trump practically asked for it. So I mean, it shows that economic populism is a popular topic, and if you don't go down the path of economic populism, whether one likes it or not, you will pay the price eventually.
Yes, absolutely. But how do you view the first few days of the Biden presidency?
So I look it from a foreign policy because that's what I usually look at it more. I mean, it's
Hmm.
very, very early days, but during the Senate hearings, like Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State nominee, and General Austin, the defense, they have made the right noises, be it Taiwan, India, they have mentioned it to be the key component of, let's say, the Indo-Pacific, the India. They have made enough assurances on Taiwan as a net security provider. Uh, but unfortunately, what has happened is like that has gotten lost in the news, and in India, the news headlines have all unfortunately focused on resumption of military aid to Pakistan, which is, I mean, which is kind of bound to happen because Trump was unconventional in a way where he completely stopped the military aid while the other administrations haven't done that.
So there are two things about here, right? One is the Biden administration going to be as pro India as the Trump administration? Yes and no. I think by and large there are some parts of the India US relationship that even the far left in the Democrat cannot screw up as much as they want to. They
Mm-hmm.
won't be able to, because I'm not going to deny that there are elements, troubling elements, especially in the whole Kashmir 370 CA
Mm-hmm.
issue,
Mm-hmm.
that exist in the Biden elements that have Biden administration that have said a lot of troubling things. But when it comes to Pakistan, I certainly sense a change in position. So I don't think we should view their India stands via Pakistan, but if we are looking as them being like not as favorable to Pakistan as being pro India, no, that's not going to happen. Even if they are pro India, they will still, I think, pursue a more pro Pakistan line than Trump would. Trump
So
did.
I think there's a lot of consensus on Capitol
Mm,
Hill in the
mm,
support towards India. Now,
mm,
obviously, on CA NRC, there will be more noises, there'll be
mm,
more hearings. Some of the critics of the Modi government will delighted, like there'll be more hearings, and like there could be like splashy, clickbaity kind of headlines on that. But
mm.
I think one has to look beyond it because the biggest challenge remains China, and there is bipartisan consensus on the Democrats and Republicans. So I think it will be like kind of a mix that you might not have the hawkish Trump stance, but also you won't have the dovish Obama stance where he and Xi met and Xi promised him that, oh, we won't do any work in the South China Sea, which like Obama wasn't able to do anything. So it'll be kind of a mix between like the Trump position and the Obama position, somewhere in between. Now China is notorious at pushing the needle to test the Biden administration. So it'll be interesting to see how they do on especially the China angle over the I
So
mean, how does China push Biden over the 6 12 months, be it Taiwan or India?
yeah, I read. I was just flipping the Karan Thapar wrote a piece about Biden and Blinken or something, and yeah, it was as Karan Thapari as you can imagine. And I don't even consider him a journalist. He's like probably like almost he's trying to act like a power broker sometimes, along with some interviews thrown in.
Yeah.
So because his kissas are all like, oh, I met Sudhinta Kulkarni and I made this meeting happen. I made that meeting happen. I'm like, "Ye kya hai yaar? This is are you a journalist or are you not?"
Yeah, I mean, that's like, as I said before, and I discussed this with Kishore on the latest India Rising
Hmm,
episode 31, about the what will happen on the Biden presidency.
hmm,
That there will be some noises, but I think one has to look at the 30,000 feet view. See, if you look over the last 20 years,
hmm,
you had all combinations of Congress and BJP on one side and
hmm,
Democrat and Republican.
hmm,
You had Vajpayee and Bush.
hmm,
Then you had Manmohan Singh and Manmohan Singh and Bush.
hmm.
Then you had Manmohan Singh and Obama. That you had Modi and Obama. And then you had Modi and Trump. No, Modi and Biden. So no matter who is in power, obviously they might issue more statement. But this is not like the. I mean, me and Kishore were discussing
and
the
and
other day.
potentially Modi and someone else, because I mean I don't know if it's occurred to people. 2024 is this one unique year where India, Britain, and US
Yeah,
they all
yeah.
go to polls in the same year.
I guess more fun for people like us, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So the point I was trying is like on the podcast that like with Kishore, that I think there will be a lot of statements, but at the end of the day, like I mean, one should not get overexcited about it because China is the big elephant in the room.
Hmm.
So they cannot just go easy on China as much as
They
some
won't.
people think, you know.
No, and let's put it this way, na. The China may be the big elephant in the room, but they cannot forget that popular perception regarding COVID and stuff is not the same like it was before. So there
Yeah,
is a lot
yeah.
of issues with that too. But basically, in conclusion, and then we'll go on to the real fun part, India versus Australia. I
Hmm.
think what we'll also have to see is the continuation. Like what part of the whole Trump Biden thing is a continuation and what part isn't. And that
Hmm.
is really the case. So, how do you view that?
I mean, it's too early days.
Hmm,
In all the Senate hearings, they made the right noises about
hmm,
appearing sufficiently hawkish
right.
on China.
Hmm,
Now, the real fun starts when they push the envelope. I mean, China is not, as you said, in Ladakh over like the last 1 year.
Mm.
So we have to see that how much support they are willing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, you have to keep those the statements and hearings on CA NRC on the side,
Absolutely.
which are
Mm.
going to happen no matter what. But
Mm.
the larger strategic relationship is on the upswing as long
Mm.
as China is a threat to India.
Absolutely, I agree completely. So let's, that seems to be the case. So let's, taking this a little bit forward, right? I think what we are looking is probably a wait and watch approach for the next 12, 13 weeks, and let's see how this works. Also, once the Biden administration is settled in with the whole COVID situation, and if there is a effect where we do see the number of cases going down, I have a feeling we might see a couple of interesting things. But so that's what it is, and maybe Mohal will certainly be back for the follow-up podcast on Biden. But as I promised last week, we are
Hmm.
going to, people were like, I was like, I don't want to talk about this. I'll do like a 15-20 minute discussion on US politics next week. So, which is this podcast, obviously. But now, moving on to the game we love and the best game in the on planet Earth, cricket. If you guys don't like it, I am really sorry, but actually try watching a game. And last week was probably the best advertisement of Test cricket.
Hmm.
India beat Australia down under 2-1. The most magnificent comeback, probably one of the biggest wins in the history of Indian cricket, next to, if not as big as, Kolkata 2001.
Yeah, yeah.
And just incredible. The last time we recorded the podcast, we had the Sydney heist, and we hadn't they hadn't chased the 328. I did a podcast with Kushal Mehra about the win on that day itself, so you guys do check out Kushal's channel as well. They do some fantastic work there. The Charvaka podcast. But basically what it is the way, the attitude was even more sort of amazing than the cricket itself. The cricket was outstanding, it was top notch, but it was almost like they were running on 120% efficiency, right? Because if you do a 100% to 100% matchup between India and Australia, Australia was miles ahead. India had pretty much like a type C team, like India A, India B. We used to have those NKB Salve Challenger Trophy, India Senior, India A,
Hmm.
India B. This was
Yeah.
India B, right? The third, some of the players would go there. I mean, no disrespect to them, that's just how it was. So how do you view this? How do you view this?
I think you correctly put it. I think in terms of overseas test wins, I
Mhm.
mean, I haven't like studied all the wins going back in history, but this would rank as probably the foremost overseas win ever. And I know like some people are biased towards this because as you said, like the eight of the first choice players were not participating in it.
Mhm.
But if I look at it, I would still rank it a bit lower than Kolkata because the level of opposition was much higher. And I mean, if you look at the team, it probably had like 8 to 11 like Hall of Famers on in the Australian team on that side. So I would say like the maybe the second best test match win ever for India and the best overseas win so far.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's talk about what Shardul Thakur and Washington Sundar did. Man, Washington Sundar makes me feel like a buddha. When I see 21, I'm like, oh my god, he's a decade and a more younger to me and doing all these things, right? So how do you view that? I mean, it's unbelievable, unbelievable.
Yeah, I think here, I think as I on the same day I did tweet that we need to have Rahul Dravid nominated for the Dronacharya Award
Hmm, hmm,
because this is the effect of the India A Tour. So what they have done, India has done over the past 2 3 years is that
hmm,
before a senior team goes, let's say in 2020, now because of the pandemic, maybe it didn't happen for the last 12 months, but usually 6 to 12 months prior,
hmm,
India sends out the BCCI sends out a tour where they identify the talent in the pool system,
hmm,
so they
hmm,
get a lot of exposure. Because what used to happen is before, I mean, you can name a lot of players in the 90s and even in the 2000s. Players used to go overseas, make their test debut, and then just got found out very badly in overseas conditions. So now they have not only they have a good mentor like Rahul Dravid coaching them up and working on their the mental part of the game, but also this overseas A tours also gives a lot of exposure to these new youngsters.
exactly, exactly. Um, but tell me this though, right? The most amazing thing was the story of people like T. Natarajan, Navdeep Saini coming from smaller India. And so, there are a lot of cliches about new India, this, that. Are we seeing that? Are we seeing a new India that we hadn't seen, or is this just a natural conclusion of what we saw with Dhoni, Kohli, all that? That even some who come from, I mean, Dhoni came from Ranchi, but some even who come from bigger cities, right? A lot of them come from very humble backgrounds where the parents had really sacrificed a lot to make sure their kids go in, right? But because of the more democratization of Indian cricket, more opportunities that are being given because of IPL, where you have at least 100 players, Indian players that are going to
Mhm.
be picked, right? So is that helping? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean the Dhoni effect is for sure. Like many cricketers from smaller towns are participating in Indian cricket, but also I think the coaching of part also needs to be done. I mean, actually, Greg Chappell, I mean, who I mean, no matter of Indian cricket fans hate a lot, wrote
Yeah.
a good article that like compared to like something like a Will Pukowski or a Cameron Green who like came from Sheffield Shield to Test match cricket, compare a journey of an Indian cricketer. So in most cases, he goes through under 14,
Hmm.
under 16,
Hmm.
under 19, and
Hmm.
many people don't know this. They say also an under 23 category, and
Hmm.
then you have in India too. So imagine the amount of coaching and the rigorous training he would be done. And then I think it's like best that a person like Dravid at the top finishes off the qualities
Hmm.
and instills the confidence in them. So like they get molded, and then India is like the final uh like the apex, like where you get molded into a test. I mean, Siraj, for all I mean, I was watching him and I couldn't believe that he was a debutant, right? I mean,
Hmm.
from to go from a debut 2 test matches earlier to the leader of the attack in the last test match
Hmm.
is like just crazy, if you think of it. It never must have happened.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. No, no. And for me, the most incredible thing amongst the whole India story was also the way it panned out, right? From 36 all out to this incredible win, and that
Mhm.
ridiculous term of Gabatoire is now not used for. I mean, I just
Oh
found it
man, like
obnoxious.
yeah, I mean, like, see, the thing is, like, I mean, you can make up stats as you want. Like in India, we haven't lost in probably Delhi since like 1987. So does it mean like Delhi is a fortress? I mean, we should do this promotion and prachar ki, Delhi is a fortress. We haven't lost since 1987. So, I mean, and even if you look at the percentage, India, like Australia is 24 out of 31 in GABA. We have won 11 out of 14. So if you look at 11 out of 13, the percentage that way is higher than GABA. So then should we call
Also, it
Delhi
doesn't help that once every 4 years that opponent happens to be a very sorry England team.
a
so I mean that's pretty much it, right? So and I mean if you look at it, right, but I do sense the point of that. Yes, it was a fortress and they would intimidate, but the thing is I think they actually got caught with overconfidence. That Aussie swagger is what actually hit them, and then Tim Payne's statement against Ashwin probably hit them about 4 times.
Yeah, like welcome to GABA, right? I guess we must be regretting that statement a lot. I mean, the other thing is, if you look at it, like you have to give credit to also Pujara. I mean, the
Hmm.
man just loves batting to people, to grinding them. I mean, I was just looking at the stats. So, if you take the last three series, the two in Australia and the one
Hmm.
return series that we won 2-1 in India in 2017, he
Hmm.
averages an astounding 1,078 deliveries per test series. So imagine,
Insane.
so the guy himself, he's batting 180 overs, which is 2 days of test match cricket. So
Hmm.
we played what, 4 test matches. So
Hmm.
out of the 20 days of test match, Adit,
Hmm.
in India and Australia,
Hmm.
Pujara himself bats just 2 days. Just
No,
one
no,
guy.
not just that. Harsha Bhogle had some ridiculous statistic that in I think the last three series he had some 2,900 something balls or some crazy amount, right? I was actually doing the math. Each test is what 90 times 5 overs, 450 overs,
Yeah.
450 times six. If you do is 2,700 balls, okay, and some additional. If he's batted about 3,000 balls or something, that's an entire test match was just Pujara batting with
No,
300
I'm
more
saying
balls.
out of
Unbelievable.
20, out of the 20 days of test match cricket that we have,
Yeah.
India,
Hmm.
Australia,
Hmm.
there are like 22 batsmen, right, who bat
Hmm.
across it.
Hmm.
So Pujara, out of the 20 days, Pujara bats 2 days on an average.
Hmm. That is unbelievable.
So I think he's grinding the Aussie bowlers into the dust. So I think one of the things that Aussies, I think even the Aussie commentators are saying in hindsight is they should have rotated the bowlers, especially Stark, who looked ineffective after the Sydney test, should have been replaced
Hmm.
because he didn't lift it. So it's looking interesting. The averages, if you look, so like the
But here
Cummins
is
and
no,
Hazelwood.
no, no, no. I
Just that
agree
one
with.
second.
Sorry,
So
go.
Cummins and Hazelwood were averaging 19 with the ball. I mean, imagine like that's like amazing statistic. You should never lose a test series if you're averaging 19 with the two people
Mm,
averaging. That's like like the 1800s wala test average hai.
mm.
And I think Stark and who's the spinner? Sorry, I forget his
Lion,
name.
Nathan Lion.
Lion. So they are averaging like something in the 40s or 60s with the ball. So that was their problem. Like two
Ah,
outstanding bowlers and two people who couldn't even carry their weight.
yes, absolutely.
Sorry,
No,
same
no.
thing.
So I was saying that the problem with the Australian commentators is not that. The problem with the Australian commentators is when they're talking about the team, they behave like they are a part of the team,
Yeah.
extension of the team, right? So cheerleading squad. Like I was watching that day, and Tim Payne kept fluffing things, and Shane Warne is like, "Oh, he's the best wicket keeper in Australia, best wicket keeper." Oh, what rubbish, man! And the amount of times they said Pat Cummins number one bowler in the world, I literally I was like, "Kya hai? You tell this 70 times every test match." I mean, people know, right? So I think the problem is which one of those commentators we blame the Indian commentators for not calling out Team India often because of BCCI or whatever. They're not calling. The Australian commentators are worse. They are not able to call out that Mitchell Stark was not looking good, right? And इसमें confidence का भी बहुत है. Had that Hanuma Vihari catch not been dropped in the Sydney Test, where let's face it, those last 10 overs, Mitchell Stark was looking dangerous when he was getting to reverse the ball in Sydney, and Hanuma Vihari nicked it, and Team Plain, as he did all series, dropped it. So so that also matters, the confidence matters, right? So how do you, I mean, let's face it, people talk about drop. Had Rahane not dropped Labuschagne on day one, Australia would have been all out for like god knows 250 or something in the first innings, because they
Yeah,
would
I
have
mean,
been
you mean
97 for
the
4.
Adelaide test?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Adelaide.
mean, we dropped like 4 or 5 catches. I think even Prithvi Shaw dropped a sitter.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, there was not a very. We dropped, I think, a half a dozen catches in the first test match. So, I think whichever team caught more catches, like usually, like wins the matches, right? So, that
Mm,
was like true of across the series that
mm,
maybe in Sydney both teams did drop quite a few catches. I
mm.
think this was a series like in Australia. If you look at it, they were just carried by four players like Labuschagne and Smith in batting and Hazelwood and Cummins in bowling, and then there were like seven people who did like off and on, like did okay. So that's where I think they fell short, and they if they had couple one more bowler and one more batsman who did outstandingly, then they would have won the Test series for
See,
sure.
no, but here's the thing, Labuschagne batted well in the chances that he was given, right? But
Sure,
the thing is, how many chances was he given?
probably at least I could count at least six on top of my head.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So there was just so many chances and so forth. So that's what I was checking. I was checking some statistics, and it was unbelievable. But in the closure, right? We love giving credit, and I have to admit I have criticized Ravi Shastri many times
Oh yeah.
from this on some, but this is as much Ravi's win as much it is Rahane's win, because there is a coach and the support staff matter a lot when half the team is injured.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very critical of Ravi Shastri and said like he should like leave. But I mean, you have to. I would still say like I'll give more credit to Rahane, but like yeah, you have to. The criticism of Ravi Shastri has to be walked back for the time being. I mean, now looking at the India depth now, it will almost be an expectation that if we don't do well in the 2021 2020 World Cup, the criticism will definitely come back. So for the time being, I think the Ravi Shastri criticism has gone back. I think he and Rahane are like similar kind of grind it out, tough mentality person. I think that's what after Kohli left, that was in a way good change that the grind it out, tough mentality, personality of
No,
Rahane
I'll
was
tell you
came
another
on
thing.
the team.
I think Ravi can tell Rahane if he is going wrong. I don't know if him and Kohli have that equation.
I mean, that's the other thing that I mean, you need Kohli as a batsman, but I think he just gets too emotional on the cricket field. I mean,
Yeah,
he's not a bad thinker or anything, but he just gets too emotional, and I think people sometimes might be, especially the newer players, might be getting cowed down by his anger.
yeah. I mean, I think Kohli is the best player in the world across
Sure,
formats. I mean,
yeah, no doubt.
India has the best bowler, Jasprit Bumrah, across three formats, and
Just don't tell the Australian commenters; they might have disagree with them with
Pat
Smith.
Cummins is a better bowler in Test match cricket than Bumrah. I will give him that. But across one days and T20s, Bumrah is
Sure,
far better
yeah, yeah,
than
yeah,
Pat
yeah, yeah,
Cummins.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that man, you put a handkerchief or something, and he can land like 42 balls on a trot in that handkerchief. He's that good, Pat Cummins.
I know. Yeah,
And
yeah.
I felt, I mean, my God, dude. You could see his face when he got man of the series. He literally wanted to cry. Like that
Yeah,
man gave everything in the
yeah,
last 10 overs.
heart out. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Like this is just unbelievable.
But I mean, interestingly, now we have one. So coming back to Ravi Shastri, I mean, we can curse him as well, but like that dude is the only Asian coach or only the overseas coach to win two Test series in Australia.
Hmm. Who?
Ravi
Ravi
Shastri,
Shastri. Yeah,
the only
absolutely.
Asian coach to win
Well, I mean,
overseas.
which Asian team has won two series in Australia?
So actually, I was saying the funny thing is that we have won. We have lost four Test matches at home, India,
Hmm.
and Australia has lost four Test matches. Sorry, we have lost four Test matches in the last dozen years, so 12 years, and Australia has lost four Test matches in the last 21 months, all to India.
Really?
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
and also another fun stat. So now we have won two series in Australia within the
Yeah.
last 2 years,
Hmm.
and Australia hasn't won two series in India for the last 50 years. I mean, the only outlier obviously is 2004.
Wow, unreal, unreal. But I mean, that's the fascinating part of it all. Uh, b- Congratulations, Team India. This was
Mhm.
truly a victory, well deserved. One interesting I was thing I was going to tell you. So this week also happens to be yesterday was Netaji's birth anniversary, right? I was like on a on the day after we record the podcast on one of the greatest sons of Bengal, Netaji, you go and name Greg Chappell, who was hated by Bengal for messing around with their other great son, Saurav Ganguly. Right? I'm not comparing both of them, right? I'm not comparing Netaji and Dada. They
Yeah, yeah,
both
yeah,
have their, Netaji is like
yeah,
something
yeah.
else. But this is just, I found that funny. But one thing, and I'm giving one recommendation before I even start the thing is there are two movies on Netaji's life. One is Gumnami by Srijit, talks about the Mukherjee Commission hearing and are based on Anuj Dhar and Chandrachud Ghosh's book. Fascinating movie. I'm not sure if I'm completely sold on the Gumnami Baba theory, but the movie makes you think, and that's what you want any movie to do, right? It has to provoke, make you think. And Sonu Nigam's fantastic song of Subhash Ji. The second movie I'm going to recommend at the end of the podcast, but read Mindmakers has done a lot of articles on Subhash Chandra Bose. I'm not going to sit and discuss about his legacy. For that, we need a whole separate podcast. But do read all those pieces. The fantastic, great, brave son of India did something incredible. So, Mohal, do you have anything quick to say before I move on to the political news?
No, I mean, he was like uh, left a indelible legacy on the Indian independence movement. For sure,
Hmm,
Netaji.
hmm. Exactly, exactly. So let's move on to the political. Rahul Gandhi is in Tamil Nadu. What do you think about that?
I mean, the thing is like he can be there, but I mean, I'm not sure what kind of impact he is going to be. I mean, are the alliances certain? Like the DMK is allying with Congress for sure.
I mean, I don't think they have a choice
Because see, the thing
because
is like,
ADMK and BJP have declared. Rajnikant has listened to the inner voice of God or something that he's not going to suppose fight. Kamal Hassan is in an alliance with the TV studios of North India. So I don't know. I mean,
no, that's the thing is like you don't want the Bihar scenario happening. Now
Hmm,
see, AIDMK is unpopular for sure.
hmm, hmm,
DMK is definitely ahead and very likely to win. But
hmm.
you won't want a scenario like Bihar, like where Congress gets 70 seats to contest and they just drag down the alliance. So the interesting thing will be the DMK and the Congress seat sharing agreement, like how much are they willing to concede. And if not, will Congress fight alone? Then they will just get routed probably.
I personally think this is being done to make sure that they don't get more seats, right? So this is like a preemptive strike that's being done by Rahul Gandhi and his Sena to make sure that they get more seats and more sitting room at the table.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. I mean, the elections are still like a few months away, so it'll be interesting to see like this and West Bengal.
Yeah. No, but tell me this: West Bengal में तुम्हें क्या लगता है? We are coming to the last 5 minutes of Mind podcast, and since we are at the business end and we are at the gupshup end, you have to tell me what do you think about West Bengal? I mean,
So
the whole point of Mind podcast is gupshup. If you're thinking, why am I saying business and is gupshup end?
So I think BJP is slightly ahead. So they
Hmm.
would be slightly over the halfway mark. But I mean, there are a lot of uncertainties. And then nobody knows with the violence that could happen preceding the election, like, and the intimidation, like what kind of, because a lot of people are just afraid to speak up their trend.
Mind.
But from the trends you can see there is a slowly momentum building against TMC. I think some Bengalis might have made up their mind, but not might be willing to speak up out of fear.
Hmm.
So the BJP, I mean the whole goal is that okay, BJP and let's say I mean Trinamool like have 40% vote share of
Hmm.
the bloc.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
interesting is like I mean you can have let's say Congress and left with 5% each. The remaining that leaves the 10%. So that
Hmm.
wherever that goes, the election will swing. But I
Hmm.
would say like, I would give BJP a slight edge right now. At the election.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I don't know if I give them the right edge, but it's a very equal thing. Acha, oh, we have to talk about what nonsense was that Mamata running away with the Jai Shree Ram chants. Like now, Jai Shree Ram is like political for her suddenly.
I mean, see, this was like a event to I think felicitate like or commemorate the 125th anniversary of
Sorry, Subhash Chandra
Subhash
Bose.
Chandra Bose. So I mean, the people I'm not sure like why those slogans were raised. Like it was not a political rally, so it was like kind of strange that slogans were raised. But keeping that aside, like even those slogans were raised, she
Hmm.
has to like keep her cool because now BJP people know that like this is the slogan to trigger her every time when she appears like petulant by
Correct.
triggering getting triggered.
That
So like
is
she has to keep her cool that if the slogans are raised, like
hmm.
just walk away. You don't need to address it on the head. Now by
She's
address
so sorry, go on. Yeah.
no, by addressing or by countering it, she just appears the worse of person. If she could have conveniently ignored, then maybe the protesters look bad that at a
Hmm.
commemoration function for Subhash Chandra Bose, why such slogans were raised. I mean, I'm not saying that don't raise the slogans, but I
Hmm.
mean maybe at a certain other event. So she's just, I mean, both sides are wrong, but like she has to be the better person, and she can't be. She just gets triggered at every little event. That's the
Boss, this
problem.
is this is an election year. Politics will happen. Politics happens everywhere, right? As a great philosopher Rahul Gandhi said, politics is in shirt, is in pant. So I am not. But my point is, if she finds Jai Shri Ram political, that was her stage. She could have taken the stage and she should have said that why I disagree or why I agree with the slogan or I agree with this and that. The
Or not even just address it, just not
the
address it. I
point
mean.
is, and this is what
Hmm.
Harita said, if there was another slogan, another religious slogan that was raised, would she have walked away? That's my thing. And
Yeah.
that is something you and that is the phony fraud Indian secularism. अगर किसी ने किया है तो किया है. If you
Mhm,
don't like it, you have the mic on the stage, ma'am. You
mhm.
can, say
No,
whatever you want.
let's say even if there were let's say even not a religious slogan, let's say a non-religious slogan, she has to understand that this is done to
Mhm.
trigger her. She
Mm.
has to it's like like the sledging we call in cricket, like they want you to like Tim Payne and I mean Labuschagne, you saw like they were practically like was just trying to sledge all the Indian cricketers, but like the Indians kept their cool and went about their business. Same thing
Yeah,
like with
exactly.
Mamta, like because now she becomes a talking point for the next 24 hours and week, and
Mm.
like BJP has found, oh, this is her weak point, we will go and needle her every time we see her around.
See, if people start saying कि why are election political parties playing politics in election years or something like that, so then what is the point of election years or what is the point of
No, I mean,
political
I'm
parties?
okay with needling, as I said. The thing
Yeah.
is, she has to keep her cool. I mean, let's say if someone is heckling like Prime Minister Modi or like let's say another political leader,
Mm, mm.
like there are like a lot of even in the opposition, like most of them just choose to ignore it, right? I mean,
Arey yaar,
Nitish.
when Renuka Chaudhary was laughing like a mad woman in the parliament, right? And it was like basically she was laughing like crazy, right? Prime Minister Modi made a joke out of it. If you don't like the joke, you criticize Mr. Modi. If you like the joke, you laugh. If you think
Mhm.
Renuka Chaudhary should have shouted louder, you do that. But udhar khatam karo. Did Modi walk out saying, "Oh, how dare she shout?" So I mean, it's like that. But anyways, coming to the end of the podcast, Mohal, do you have any recommendations for our listeners this week?
Yeah, so I've been watching this sci-fi show, like The Expanse, like the season series, like one of the I think the best sci-fi shows around.
Mm, mm.
If you, I don't know if you have already gotten a chance to watch it, like
I
we're in
haven't. No.
season
Yes.
six. Yeah.
Mm. So that's your recommendation.
Mhm,
My recommendation would be a movie that I saw, the second movie I was talking about. I'd
mhm.
seen this about 15 years ago by Shyam Benegal, called Netaji the Forgotten Hero, with Sachin Khedekar in the lead. Fantastic movie, outstanding star cast. I mean, the star cast is it is some of the best known faces of FTII, NSD, all those people. So theater. If you've seen theater, you'll recognize a lot of them. And here is the thing. So I don't think that even that movie does justice to Bose, because it just focuses on one particular era, and Gumnami focuses on a different aspect. But the reason I recommend these movies is not because I agree with them completely. I have a lot of disagreements with that. I have a lot of disagreements with people who've written these movies. But you must watch this, because that's going to provoke you to read more stuff about Bose and make up your mind what parts you agree and what parts you disagree. But that can only happen if you read and write. And so I would highly recommend those things. And write to us and say what you think. If you disagree, if you agree, write to us, and we'll talk more. But we'll be back next week with more. And to all our folks in India, a very happy Republic Day, because we won't. I mean, this is the last time we're seeing you before 26 January. So we'll be talking more. So thank you so much, Mohal, for joining. This was great fun. Pata bhi nahi chala where we finished 45 minutes of discussion, but
Thanks, Adit.
we'll do more soon. So all right, guys, take care. We'll be back soon. Thanks.